everybody. Hi. Welcome to the Everything Jazz stage. And it seems like a really good time to have a chat to Liana Flores now that it's raining cats and dogs outside. But this is the Everything Jazz stage. It's a new home, Everything Jazz, for jazz here in the UK. And it's a site packed with artist stories, interviews, and exclusives from a dedicated team of editors, curators, and writers, including me, Jane Cornwell. And we sell records from labels including Blue Note, Verve, Impulse, ECM, and more. And you'll find us on everythingjazz.com. Now, it's my very great honor to introduce Liana Flores, who some of you may have caught at Supreme Standards just now. Absolutely beautiful. Liana, as I'm sure you know, is a British Brazilian singer whose debut album, Flowers of the Soul, was released last year on Verve. Perhaps, well, as I say, caught her performance just now on Supreme Standards. She pairs dreamlike vignettes involving nature, fantasy, love, and loss with lush arrangements and wistful guitar melodies. So let's start, Liana. Just tell us a bit of background, where you grew up, and how did your upbringing steer you toward a music career?
Hi, Jane. Thank you for having me. So I grew up in South Norfolk, in kind of near the countryside, and I think that that's ended up inspiring my lyrics a lot. I sing a lot about nature and such. I got my start in music, as many of us do, singing in the school choir and doing musicals and stuff, but got more into folk music, specifically like 60s, 70s folk, at university, and then went on to write songs in that style too.
Now, I know that you kind of made a name for yourself a little bit on YouTube and TikTok because you were doing covers of numbers from show tunes from musicals on ukulele, and you had a site called Ukulele, and you did some sort of show tune mashups. Tell us a bit about that. What was the fascination with musicals? Because it seems like such a very far removed from what you do now.
Yeah. In a way, it's far removed, but it's kind of close at the same time because a lot of musical theater, like those songs are jazz standards, and like especially older musicals have a lot in common compositionally with like jazz music. So I think there's a link there. But I loved the emotional context of the songs and the storytelling of it.
I was going to say the storytelling is a huge thing, isn't it? And certainly that dovetails with folk and the music that you love. And your influences, as you say, range from folk to classic jazz to Brazilian pop. Where's your mum from? What part of Brazil?
My mom's from Amapá in the Amazonas region of Brazil.
Wow. Okay. And she was born there and came over to the UK.
Yeah.
Okay. And bossa nova and Jobim. You just did a Jobim cover down there. But let's focus, I think, because we're kind of a little bit strapped for time, on a major touchstone for you, which was the folk singer Vashti Bunyan. I don't know if anyone here knows of Vashti Bunyan, but she was a sort of, she was discovered, she had a renaissance late, didn't she? But tell us about Vashti Bunyan and how you found out about her and what was it about her and her records and her lifestyle that seemed to speak to you.
Yeah, I'm really obsessed with her. I'd say the two things that drew me towards her is she has a kind of like untrained vocal style, and those are the vocalists that I find resonate with me best emotionally, is a sort of like strange vocal style or just something untrained. I don't know. And she wrote her album Just Another Diamond Day when she was on a road journey, like in a horse and cart at the end of the 60s. And I love road stories, but a lot of the time there's a kind of like hardness to them or an idea of like, oh, like we're on the road and like it's like a tough thing. But I think what was brave about her writing is that she wrote very gently about it and in this kind of feminine way, which I don't see much. So that drew me to her album a lot. Yeah.
She had a real love for nature, didn't she?
Yeah.
Something that dovetails with your own. And yeah, so talk a little bit about that because I know you have a first in zoology. So nature is something that really informs your music, and I think, yeah, and yeah. So tell me a little bit about the nature side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it a lot. I think it's connected to all aspects of like feeling things deeply, like in a like capital R romantic sense, like being super into nature and like expressing that, and then it can go to like love or like sadness, other things. I think there's connections there. And I love that Vashti, to bring it back to her, I love that she sings songs about her dog as well. because I love my cat a lot. So yeah.
And I know you read her biography and you love the fact she sort of lived on, she cooked nettles and she, you know, as you say, traveled in a horse and cart, but it wasn't as romantic as she made out. You know, it was about the journey, but it wasn't as romantic. But, you know, there's something you said that she's a bit out of time and that dovetails with how you feel about yourself. Why is that?
Yeah. I think maybe not everything worth expressing, but a lot of the things most worth expressing would be worth expressing at any point in history or any point in the past or future. So that's something that I find inspiring.
And there seems to be a real return to real playing values. I mean, your aesthetic has a kind of sepia tinted vibe to it. You know, your videos, yeah, you know, there's crackling screens and there's, you know, all these kind of high neck dresses and all this stuff, but you do it, you kind of refract it through a 21st century lens. But there is, people do seem to want to go back to these real playing values. And why do you think that is? Why is there a renewed interest in Nick Drake and Pentangle and Vashti Bunyan?
Yeah, I love Nick Drake. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. I'm glad you mentioned. Yeah, Nick Drake's Five Leaves Left was a big inspiration for my last album. I think that kind of thing, it was always there, but the internet makes it easier to circulate it and for like different generations to get into it as well.
We're really battling with this other music, aren't we? My gosh. Okay, let's talk about your album, Flowers of the Soul. Tell me about some of the songs on there. Night Visions, which you sang, is absolutely gorgeous. You know, but it's very otherworldly. It's about, it could be about a vampire, it could not be about a vampire. You know, you have a lot of elemental stuff about the rain, about the night, about the sun. And there's a sense of real impermanence there that I think is also a delicacy. Was this something you set out to do, or was it something that just evolved as you were making the album?
The theme I set out for with Flower of the Soul was to set like English romantic poetry to bossa nova and to like mix those two things and add a little bit of like jazz standard style, like Great American Songbook, and a little bit of folk, but the main inspiration was bossa nova and romantic poetry.
Okay. And it's very literary music. You know, there seems to be a kind of, are there authors that you love that have kind of inspired your lyric writing?
You mentioned Night Visions. So the idea with that song was to take what Kate Bush did for Wuthering Heights and do that with the Twilight Saga because I love it. So yeah.
I love that. So Kate Bush meets Twilight Saga. That's cool. Yeah. I love that. I get that. Yeah, someone actually referenced Camilla, which was the 18th century, or we've got 19th century Gothic novel. Yeah. What else can we say? I think, which is the track that you feel resonates most with people from your album?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I actually don't know. It depends on the person.
All right. Let's see. So when you signed to Verve, was that a surprise? Was that something that, you know, you thought for a debut album, signing to Verve is kind of a big deal?
Yeah, I felt very lucky to be able to work with them on the last album. Like, yeah, very lucky. Don't take that for granted. It was something that we've been kind of like pushing around the plate for like a year or so before signing, so I wasn't sure, but it ended up being the right decision, I think.
Absolutely, and it is such a beautiful album. So what's next for Liana Flores? What's next going forward?
There's a couple more festivals this summer, then we're working on recording an EP and putting that out maybe at the end of the year, and supporting Men I Trust on their tour at the end of the year, which should be fun.
And who else have you supported? Because you've supported some kind of big names already, haven't you?
Yeah, I supported Matt Maltese last year and Leve years ago before everything happened. Yeah.
Yeah, she went ballistic, didn't she? Ladies and gentlemen, we're kind of battling a little bit with the other sound, but let's give a big thank you to Liana Flores.
Thank you,
Flowers
Jane.
of the Soul is out on Verve.